Hello everybody, my name is Vic and I am the lead commentator here for the National Pokeball League. If you're here, I imagine that you know exactly what we're talking about, but if you are not, we are here to introduce ourselves. Again, my name is Vic, I am the lead commentator and I come from a channel called the Token Minorities. Joining me are my friends. Here we have got Fog, Dave, Tony Danza, and we have got Mr. Monotui. So if you boys would like to introduce yourselves.
Hey everybody, my name is Monotui. Great to be here with you, Vic. Great to be here with all you guys, and I'm happy to be here as an analyst for the NPL. And I love you, Michaela Maroney.
Hey everybody, I'm Dave Fernape. Nice to meet all of you, and I'm the newest member of the MPL.
Hey guys, Crowbat for the win here, Denza, and I defer to Fog.
Hello guys, it's Fog here, your Season 1 champion. I'm like the classic sports player who, once he becomes a washed-up, terrible player, he goes into commentary. So here I am.
There you go, Tim Tebow at his finest.
Alright, so we are real quick going to analyze the draft for the National Pokeball League Season 3, which is a real interesting looking draft with some obscenely powerful teams, some really talented coaches, and there's also some very, very odd picks, so we will break all this down for you guys and see if we can shed some light on this system. So Fog, would you like to explain how the draft went down, please?
Alright, so for the draft, we start off with the Mega Picks. Usually in most drafts, Mega Picks come last, but we decided for ours to go first. What are you laughing? So we went from 1 to 12, and we went in a serpentine order. So Detroit and Ashley picked first, going all the way down to Atlanta and Trev for 12th. And once we began to go to the franchise picks, we rearranged the entire order, starting with Trev and Atlanta and going to Detroit. So something new you will see something you would recognize in the contract system from previous MPL years, 3-year contracts, 2-year contracts, and 1-year contracts, functioning in the way where you can trade your 3-, 2-, and 1st-year contracts as well, but you can also drop your 1st-year contracts to pick up free agents. The big change here is the purple section, which will be franchise picks. Now, with these Pokemon, which is an interesting change, you get to keep them as a 3-year contract, and past that, you have the option to keep them as long as you desire. So, if Atlanta and Trev really like their Victini and they want to keep it past the 3 seasons they have him, they can have him for as long as they want. Or, if you're, say, New England and you don't really like your Rotom Wash after 3 seasons, you can get rid of it and then repick in the upcoming draft of the new franchise Pokemon.
And that's the logistics of the draft. So, moving forward, we are going to give you a quick analysis of the draft itself, give you some quick power rankings, say what we think is going to happen in the upcoming season, and aside from that, we will jump straight into matches in the upcoming weeks. So, who would like to start out with any general assessments of the draft that went down?
I think I'd like to just make one comment. One thing that really stuck out to me was how Azumarill dropped all the way to the 4th round. Azumarill is a Pokemon that was an MVP in Season 1, and to see it drop to round 4 with the likes of Pokemon like, likes of Pokemon like Metagross and like Cobalion and stuff like that, I feel like Azumarill definitely should have gone a lot higher than it was picked at.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I think that people are realizing more and more how to deal with Azumarill, and with the prevalence of bulky water, it's just not the amazing threat that it was in mid-XY.
Yeah, and I think another step further, Espeon as a franchise pick. Not sure about that. I'm kind of questioning it.
Especially with Mega Absol, too.
On the same team, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are your first 2 picks to start off the draft and to find where you're going. Didn't really...
It's a lot of magic bounce.
Yeah, there'll definitely not be hazards on your side of the field, that's for sure.
No, I mean, there's no hazard removal on that team, though, otherwise, so...
Yeah.
Also something that's extremely noticeable, there's a fucking Dunsparce.
Yeah.
Relax.
I mean...
Like, 5 minutes before this recording, I still thought that was a joke.
Yep, there is indeed a fucking Dunsparce. It's on a pretty solid team, too, is what's scary. It's on the same team as Mega Altaria, Excadrill, Raikou, Gyarados, Conkeldurr. It's on an excellent team, and, I mean... We'll have to see what Razor can do with that. I mean, if he can turn that into if he can get even close to a positive differential on that thing, I will be impressed. I'll be very impressed.
I mean, we all know Razor. Razor is able to channel hacks at a level that we are not able to, so I'm sure Dunsparce will fit in well in his team somewhere.
It'll be interesting. I mean, we'll see. Maybe he'll run, Thunder Wave Raikou, paralyze everything, bring in Dunsparce, and just headbutt to death.
I mean, yeah, he has Tangrowth, which is pretty much just how you win a draft format.
Especially when you put Psych Up on it. Sorry, Toad.
Oh god, let's not refer to that. Any other comments generally on the draft before we jump into power rankings? Any comments on like the mega pick?
Oh, not the mega picks, but I do have a comment on how Oakland's last pick was an ice cream cone.
Oakland's last pick was an ice cream cone. Vanillux did get drafted, which is, to me, more surprising than Dunsparce.
I am in complete agreement.
Yeah,
He's
aside from Michaela Maroney currently being on my screen, that is the second most delicious thing I am looking at right now.
The only comments I think that I have are, let's just look at the pure bulk that is the second half of the Atlanta Braviaries. We've got Umbreon, Alomomola, Doublade, Aggron, and Braviary, and Mega Blastoise all on the same team with a Landorus T. Like, holy god, that team is never going to die. No, it'll be interesting to see, because, I mean, if Ashley, the coach there, can structure a really good team each week, then she's got real potential. However, it's going to be an interesting balance between offense and defense, because she doesn't really have that much in the way of switch hitting. Everything here is pretty devoted, except maybe Landorus T, which can do bulky offense pretty well. It'll be interesting to see.
The coach of Atlanta is the man. That's Trev.
Is that Trev?
Yes.
Yeah,
Detroit,
Ashley is
actually.
Detroit. We can still call him a she.
I am a fan of calling Trev a she, I'm not gonna lie.
And speaking of Detroit, there were 4 psychic types in a row picked.
Yeah, Detroit does have 4 psychic types.
And like, there are 4, like, the team is super knockoff week, like, there are 4 psychic types in a row. Not to mention that Chansey never wants to come in on a knockoff, because once it loses the Eviolite, it loses a lot of utility. So,
Yeah.
the team is very knockoff weak with Lucario and Slurpuff. Like, Slurpuff, I'll give it, can be a decent knockoff switch in depending on how you set it up and the team matchup. But I mean, other than that, like, beware, your knockoffs, you know, you're gonna have a problem with knockoff.
The thing is, the fear of justified E-Speed Lucario definitely would stop me from firing off knockoffs with Gay Abandon.
This is very true, yes.
Also, free switch-ins for Charizard X are not fun.
True.
That's
Though, another problem with that is a lot of the things that do carry knockoff also carry some sort of fighting or ground move. For example, Crocodile, it's risky to bring it in on a potential Earthquake. Weavile, it's risky to bring in on a potential low kick. Bisharp, potential low kick, things like that.
All very true, and I mean, all part of the mind game that is knockoff, that is justified, that is having a team with 4 psychic types, that is being Ashley. Do we have, I'm trying to think if I have any more comments, other than the fact that the Phoenix Sunkern are absolutely terrifying.
I don't know, like, I look at Phoenix and, like, I see, like, a super solid OU team. Like, I mean, most of the time, you know, you draft, like, a bunch of OK mons, you know, from a bunch of tiers that'll work well together. This is, like, half a good synergistic OU team. Like, Latios, Ferrothorn, and Manaphy together is, like,
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean,
I like
Thunderous
this.
Eye has been suspect tested in past metagames. Bishop's terrifying, Gothitelle is an amazing coverage mon. Togekiss is great, Gliga's amazing in this format as Jolt proved last season. P2 and Scolipede are monsters, and Mega Medicham HJK's its way to victory.
I still will defend that. I don't think Bisharp is amazing in the format, but the entire rest of the team is just...
Yeah, no. Bishop's not great in the
Crazy.
format, but Bishop is still...
It has its place.
Yeah, it has its place, and it really is the best at what it does.
It's like Gothitelle, it has its place, and once you find its place to bring it in the matchup, it will dominate the matchup.
Well said. Anybody else have any more comments, or do we want to jump into our power rankings?
Every single Pokemon, you know how there's always that one kid that on the playground, they would pick a rock before they picked him? That's how every Pokemon felt when Vanillux was picked.
Yeah, I can think of a lot of mons that should have gone before Vanillux. I think that Lapras is definitely a better option than Vanillux. I think that Delibird is a better option than Vanillux.
I think
Yeah,
my
okay,
80-year-old
that's
decrepit grandma is a better pick than Vanilla.
I am pretty sure that my Dachshund is a better pick than Vanillux.
Are there any Pokemon that were not picked that we're surprised by? Like in the
I'm-
regular, like in Megas, evidently there will be picks omitted because there are so many that are good.
Definitely Mega Gardevoir, I think. Mega Gardevoir is a disgusting Pokemon in the format. It rarely has, especially when you're running Hyper Voice plus Psychic plus potentially Shadow Ball, Grass move, Thunderbolt and whatever hidden power you want, it almost has no switching.
I'm just gonna say this for somebody that's looking on right now. Yeah, Mega Sharpedo wasn't picked, but you have to Mega Evolve turn 1, so you can't get the speed boost. That's one of our rules.
Very true.
Sorry everyone to watching, Dave thinks Mega Sharpedo's good.
It is, if you can actually not Mega turn 1.
Yeah,
You can
if you
keep
can,
going,
if you
you're
can
just
hold
not
off
upset.
that Mega for one turn, Mega Sharpedo is pretty scary.
Machamp didn't go.
Are we really surprised about that?
Machamp can be good in the format, especially with something like Heavy Slam to hit fairies with. I'm more surprised Hariyama didn't go.
I'm very surprised that Feraligatr did not go.
I am totally agreeing. Feraligator's a monster.
Feraligatr is an absolute animal.
There's always free agency, which I'm sure will be would be a busy time.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, Kyurem Standard.
Kieran Sanders very good too.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
Versatile. It's really versatile.
Yeah, it's just got a lot of good things you can do.
Yeah.
And you kind of fit a bunch of roles for your team.
Yeah. One of the Megas I was really surprised didn't get drafted was Mega Scizor, actually. Because Mega Scizor, I feel like, does very well in most League formats. It's really versatile. It can go, obviously, physically offensive. It can baton pass to other things. It has powerful priority in the form of Bullet Punch. Good physical move pool.
But
Of
what
course.
mega do you think was like a bad pick? Because I'm looking at them right now. Yeah, that's the only one that I say is like could have been.
I would argue Blastoise is a bad pick too if you had plans on taking Alamomola.
Yeah, I think that Blastoise doesn't fit on a team like the Braviaries, although it is a
No.
very, very good Mega. I'm honestly not sure about, what is it? Heracross and Dactyl?
I mean,
Yeah,
Aerodactyl
Mega-
is fast.
I do
It
like
is
Mega
fast.
Aerodactyl because things that are extremely fast with good move pools are really good in this format because you don't need too much raw power if you're going to hit them with a super effective move that's likely going to kill them. Mega Heracross in League format often ends up either being a complete powerhouse or absolutely useless.
Yeah, and that's just my fear with Heracross, is that it's on a team that is a little lackluster overall, so I just don't know whether it has the support, which it desperately needs to really punch. That said, it's on the same team as Galvantula, so Sticky Web gets up, that thing comes in, trouble.
That's true,
Yeah.
but also something to mention, flying types don't get hit with Sticky Web. What is Mega Heracross 4 times weak to? Flying types.
Very
Native.
true, so it's
Not
luckily
to mention-
Heracross is checked pretty well.
Not to forget to mention that fire types and fairy types are a lot better in this format than they are in general OU play,
The idea of fairy types getting better than they already are, jeez.
which essentially just makes this thing a lot harder to use
Yeah.
when you're in a closed field.
Yeah, certainly part of the reason I'm a little uncertain as to why it was drafted. I think that there are things that do that job better. I would have liked to see maybe Lopunny on that team. I'm kind of surprised that what's his nuts, giant bunny thing, Ampharos, Mega Ampharos didn't go.
I'm not.
No?
I've seen it used before in this format, and I'm just generally not impressed. I think the speed kills it, and it's weak to fairy, which is the big issue
Very true.
with the Pokemon.
I mean, I might have picked it just because of its hair, but as far as
It does
its
have
actual...
truly fabulous hair. I'm fabulous for the win. I guess the only reason I question why it wasn't picked is that Absol was picked, and
Yeah.
as much as I love Mega Absol, I have a stuffed Mega Absol staring at me as I film this. I just think that its special attack is so good and its bulk is very, very good. Also, Mega Alakazam, that one is what got me.
Oh, that's true.
Very true.
That didn't
Mega
go.
Charizard Y also to a certain extent.
Yeah. Hey, there's two things that didn't get picked: Politoed and Ninetales.
Yeah, nobody seems to be interested in weather. And the people who picked up Tyranitar and Hippowdon don't appear to be sitting with that as a weather win condition.
So why don't we start? We'll do a round-robin style explanation of our power rankings. Why don't we start with you, Dave? Give us your number 12.
Well, in last place for me was Oakland, just because they got the short end of the stick and they didn't make the smartest choices with Mega Absol and Espeon. Also later, they didn't really get Vanillux, or they did get Vanillux, which they could have gotten another Pokemon. I think the only thing they have really going for them is just Vaporeon, Florges, and Talonflame.
Yeah. All right. My number 12 is also Oakland. I just don't see them going anywhere. In my notes, I have written 3 words. It has Talonflame. I mean, Talonflame's great. There's a lot that you can do potentially with Jolteon, Sableye. Vaporeon's very reliable. Tyranitar's good, but Espeon, Mega Absol, I'm just not feeling it. And Vanillux is bad. Vanillux is just bad, I'm sorry. There are so many better ice types running around. I think that probably the best choice to fill that slot would have been Sneasel. Sneasel's very, very good. But, yeah, Oakland, Roserades, I'm sorry.
In 12th, I also have Oakland. I look at the team, I don't see a single Pokemon there that while I, as a person, would be team building, I'm overly worried about. There's just a bunch of okay Pokemon that can easily just, like, I can build my team the way I want to, and I won't have to worry too much about what I'm doing being disrupted. Like, I just don't see a Pokemon there that's extremely scary. Like, Tyranitar on its own, you know, it's really good in synergizing with other Pokemon, but it's just not going to get enough done. Espeon and Absol just not impressive, but he is a really, really good innovative player. So I mean, he could do well still. Like, I mean, I could very well be wrong. And you could have someone crazy planned out, but I just don't see anything with the team that works.
Okay, for my number 12 pick, I also have the Oakland Roserades. This is probably the only team we're all going to actually have on the same spot. My biggest thing is, while his team does have decent synergy, I do actually kind of like the Mega Absol more than other people, maybe. Espeon as a franchise pick, I think, was pretty weak. And the biggest thing for me is he has, although he does have 2 Magic Bounce users, he has absolutely no form of hazard removal. And the problem is, Mega Absol and Espeon are both relatively frail, so a lot of things that can set up hazards are going to hit those things really hard on switch-in if they predict wrong, and they end up going for an attacking move. But like I said earlier, I do like a couple things on his team. It's very speedy with Talonflame and Jolteon. I think Shaman is a great mod in this format. Florges and Vaporeon are a pretty nice bulky core, both can Wish Pass. But overall, I'm not seeing anything really special about Oakland. And I could be wrong, because Richard is a very good player, but we'll see what happens as the season goes on.
At number 12, I also had Oakland. Kind of an awkward draft. I mean, there's nothing really bad that sticks out, other than maybe Vanillux and maybe Espeon as a franchise pick, but it's nothing I'm used to, nothing I've seen before. I want to see what he can do with it. I don't know how Richard plays, so we'll just wait and see, but for now, he's stuck at 12.
Indeed. I mean, take everything that we say with a grain of salt, guys, because we are not the be-all and end-all, as has been shown in previous seasons. Innovation really is what comes through. I mean, you can have an amazing team and still lose to someone who's clever, so it really will come down to who can play some really interesting tricks down the road. So, for all we know, Richard could pull something amazing out of his hat. So, for your number 11 pick, Dave, why don't you tell me what you got?
Well, for number 11, I had Seattle, and Seattle's team is actually really good. It's just the draft was so close that it fell on the bottom for me. I really like the picks that they have. It's just some of them were kind of unnecessary because some mods just do the same thing for them. Like, I don't understand having Registeel and Donphan. I feel like they both kind of do the same thing. Maybe Registeel, he could have gotten a more offensive mod. He also has Melodic, which is a good defensive Pokemon, and Mega Gallade obviously just tears through teams.
Alright, my number 11 is the San Antonio Swampets, and my notes say that there's a few very good mons on this team. I mean, Tornadus T, Cresselia, Cloyster Entei, Mega Manectric are amazing. However, I do see some issues with just overall versatility. A lot of the things on this team are very one-trick ponies. Mega Manectric suffers from having, while it does have great coverage in its few moves, it has a tiny move pool. Granbull and Nidoqueen, as we've shown, just don't pull their weight particularly well in this style of league. Cobalion's great, Empoleon's great, Cresselia's great, but I don't see a whole lot of offensive presence on this team, or not a lot of offensive presence that can't be managed fairly easily. The same few mons check this team time and again for me, so it's just not doing it for me. Fog?
I have San Antonio as well as number 11, and you bring up a lot of good points, as a lot of their Pokemon are not very versatile. They have one specific role and they stick to it, and the value that you have in this league by picking mons that can do a lot of different things really helps once you get into the actual battle. In terms of mind games, your opponent has to, compromise their team, leave some certain things out that they like to have to make sure they can cover all your bases. But when you come up against this team, you pretty much know what everything's going to do before you get into the battle, and there's no surprise. I mean, there are really good Pokemon here. Like, Entei is very solid. Granbull's okay. Like, Granbull is one of those Pokemon that has, like, its niche roles. Cloyster's, if you catch someone off guard, catch someone with their pants down with a Shell Smash Cloyster, you can get some free wins with that, but overall I think this team's just full of, like, one-lane Pokemon, and I just don't think it's going to work out in the format where people have your access to your entire team beforehand.
For my number 11 pick, I actually have the Chicago Sacred Fire. On paper, and at first glance, it looks like it's a pretty strong team. Mega Heracross is extremely powerful. Heatran is an excellent bulky Pokemon that can go offensive. Tentacruel is a pretty good rapid spinner, superior, all those things. But I feel like as a whole, his team does not synergize very well. For two reasons primarily. One, he has a very glaring ground weakness with Drapion, Metagross, Tentacruel, and Heatran. And not only that, but his wall core of Heatran, Tentacruel, Garchomp gets ripped apart by very particular things. Like, Landorus Therian, for example, easily earthquakes Heatran and Tentacruel and could easily pack HP Ice for something like Garchomp, as well as Garchomp not being able to hit it back. Mammothswine rips through the team. I see a lot of... Primarily, my biggest problem with this team is I see a lot of Pokemon that just run train on his team. And I think that's going to lead to a lot of problems for Stab in the future.
Yeah, 11 ahead, Green Bay. I like his team overall, but I'm not a huge fan of Mega Aerodactyl, I guess. Not that it's bad, but he has an interesting possible core in Zapdos, Mew, and Hydreigon, and even kind of Snorlax. I think that's kind of cool. I just don't know Michael well enough. I've only seen him play in one game, and in that one game, he was 6-0'd. So, he has a better team now. He doesn't have Mew's legacy. Let's see how he does this year.
For number 10, I had San Antonio, and the reason I put them one above most of the other people here is just because I really liked their Mega Manectric and Tornadus T Volt Turn combo. That's really cool how he could set something up like that in a close draft. Cresselia and Empoleon is a really good core. Also, Cresselia can basically heal up any other one of his Mons, and Cresselia just doesn't die. Empoleon can get up rocks, it can defog. Globalion can do so many different things. And he also just has Goodra, which can eat up any special hit. Rhyperior can eat up any physical hit. Nidoqueen can punch holes. And overall, I think it just synergizes well. It's just every Pokemon is kind of outclassed by something else. And that's why it's number 9 for me, or number 10 for me.
I hear that. My number 10 is actually the New York Metangs, and when I initially discussed this with my buddy Joel, he initially was surprised, but then he kind of came around with when I explained it. And my issue with the team is that I see a lot of gaps. It's only got one hazard controller in Excadrill, and Excadrill, while it is relatively bulky, doesn't like taking hits of any variety because it's typically not got any recovery, and there's not a lot of guaranteed recovery on this team, and Excadrill is quite valuable. Also, I just see a huge gap in its mixed fire electric ground weakness. Like, those three types just rip this team to shreds. And those are weaknesses you just can't have in this format, because a good fire type is so valuable here. And while Mega Altaria is an absolute monster, I don't think it has the support that it necessarily wants. However, this team gets major points for using Dunsparce. Like, that takes balls. I am impressed.
Alright, number 10, I have Chicago Sacred Fire. The reason I had the team at number 10, there are a lot of good Pokemon, but, he has Mega Heracross, which synergizes well in a way with Galvantula, so you can get up Sticky Web, and if you can catch an opponent in the right position to get up a free Sword Stance with the Sticky Web up, I mean, most games that happens, that's a wrap, but I mean, that's pretty much the only, like, big ending game threat. I mean, he has Superior as well, but, if you're able to prepare for Superior correctly, and bring a dedicated Pokemon to shut that down entirely, the rest of his team doesn't look too threatening. Most teams have access to a ground stab, and Ground Stab beats a lot of his better Pokemon, like Heatran, Tentacruel, and Metagross as stated. These got some really cool mons though. Groudon's okay, but really slow. So at this point, I'm looking at his team. I think he has to take big advantage of Galvantula's Sticky Web. And if he's able to take advantage of it, he'll do fine. But I mean, much besides that, I can't see this team doing too much damage.
My number 10 pick is the Seattle Seadras. Similar problem I see with them that I had with Chicago. They're kind of just beaten by a lot of this, or a very simple thing, and that primarily is water types. You know, other than Melodic, he doesn't really have anything to switch in on either a water type attack or an ice type attack. For example, things that resist water, like Salamence, and actually just Salamence, don't want to take an Ice Beam, obviously. He has nothing to switch into a Scald. Mega Gallade could probably take it, but it obviously doesn't want to get burned. Melodic, again, is one of the only things that really wants to take a burn, potentially with Marvel Scale. So, and because water types are so prevalent in this league, and in league format in general, and as you'll probably notice with every other team, almost every team has either a defensive or offensive water type, I feel like his team is going to have a lot of trouble with the league. Also, as far as individual draft picks, I don't love his Typhlosion pick. I think Magmortar is much better in this format.
Alright, 10, I had Chicago.
Wait.
Lots of potential. He's in a tough division now. And one thing I want to make sure, I want to make this clear now before we continue. Literally what I did was I took the best, or what I thought who had the best draft in each division, and I ranked them from 1 to 4, 5 to 8, and 9 to 12. So that's what I'm pretty sure I did here. So that's why the rankings are a little bit maybe not as, I don't know what the word is, but that's what I ended up doing. So team 1, 2, and 3, or team A, B, C, let's do that instead. If Team B I thought had the best draft, I put them somewhere between 1 and 4. I thought Team C had the second best draft. I put them from 5 to 8. And if A had the worst draft, in my opinion, or not worst, that's a relative term, but if I didn't think they had the as good draft in their matchup, or in their division rather, against their rivals, then I put them in 9 through 12. So now that we got that out of the way, that should be sort of clear, I hope, maybe. I don't know. Alright, Chicago. Lots of potential. He's just in a rough division. Based on his draft, though, I just think he's under Ashley for now. But don't count him out. He does have plenty of threats, like Garchomp, Superior, and I do think Groudon's a threat, because that's not something to overlook with adaptability.
For number 9, I put Green Bay Palkias. Now, they have a really good team in Mew and Zapdos. That's a powerful defensive core. Mew can get up rocks, Zapdos can defog to get the opponent's rocks. He also has Mamoswine and Keldeo, which both hit like a truck. Hydreigon is great in this format. And overall, the stuff that he has besides that to cover his weaknesses all does well. He doesn't have any that big of a glaring weakness. I think the only thing is an electric weakness, especially if that electric Pokemon has Grass Knot.
My number 9 pick is the Chicago Sacred Fire, for similar reasons as the other guys, in that it's a decent team. I mean, Heatran's great, Superior's great, Groudon's great, Garchomp's amazing. Staraptor, Mega Heracross are great. I personally love Galvantula and Drapion, and Tentacruel's one of my favorite mons. But I just don't see the team getting anywhere. It's vulnerable to a whole bunch of common threats. Its ground weakness is absolutely inexcusable, even with a couple flying types and a couple of decent resists. And it's just not got a whole lot in the way of priority either. Staraptor can run Quick Attack, Mienshao gets Fake Out, Groudon has Aqua Jet, Metagross has Bullet Punch, but none of those things are particularly good at revenge killing, which is what this team... Revenge killing and then proceeding to stay in. This team's going to be pretty vulnerable and doesn't have a whole lot in the way of hazard management outside of Tenta. Unless you want to run a very strange defog Staraptor, which I personally would not suggest.
Okay, for number 9, I have New York Matangs. The team is fine. Like, the thing that I noticed as a trend for this draft is, like, for about 9 to, like, 4 or 5, like, the quality of the teams didn't change very much. Like I look at New York, and they've got a lot of good threats. Excadrill is really good. Mega Altaria is really good. Tangrowth, you know, as we've seen before, can put in work. Suicune is very good as well. But I just don't look at the team combination. Like, he's just got a bunch of individually good Pokemon. Whether or not they can come together, work well as a team, I'm not really sure. Stuff like, I don't know if Crocodile's good, but I mean, we have something like Excadrill. I mean, well, yes, they do have some different things about him. Crocodile has knockoff. There is some kind of redundancy. He also has Dunsparce, which we have beaten to death already. But overall, I think it's just a pile of, you know, a couple of good mons and then a bunch of okay stuff that could work well together. But I don't think it's too, like, extraordinary.
My number 9, I had Seattle. Once again, this is within constraints of division. So I had him as the least likely to win his division based on his draft. Although I like his team a lot, he has plenty of threats, Mega Gallade and Weavile, but I'm unsure of his matchup against Dallas and Toge. That's basically why I put him in the 9 through 12 bracket. Don't count him out though, obviously. I don't even really know his playstyle that much, obviously. For now he could stay here, and certainly I do think he has a chance of overtaking Toge or Dallas, but we just gotta wait and see.
My number 9 pick is actually the Detroit Pincers. I think Detroit had a great start to the first part of her draft with Mega Charizard X, Chansey, and Slowbro. And then after that, I saw a similar problem to some of the other people. While she has a bunch of great Mons, but Mons I don't think are going to work too well together. For example, she picked Slowbro, Jirachi, Starmie, and then Celebi. 4 things that are, first of all psychic types. Also 4 things that really do not want to take a knockoff, including Chansey as well. And as I mentioned earlier, I think she's going to have a really hard time trying to switch things into other Mons, because her only 2 real knockoff switch-ins include Lucario, which, if sent in on maybe a less powered knockoff, can get an attack boost and threaten things out, and Slurpuff, which, for one, if it's the Belly Drum Slurpuff that a lot of people like to run, you're getting your Citrus Berry knocked off, which is oftentimes crucial to having a successful Belly Drum sweep. And if it's the defensive Mon, it no longer has its recovery, and it doesn't get any form of natural recovery outside of rest anyway. Basically, my biggest problem with Ashley's team is, although it can be very powerful, and I think if she plays right, she can work a way around that knockoff weakness, her team just doesn't synergize all that well to me.
So at number 8, I put New England, the New England Patriots. Now, looking at their team is completely extraordinary. It's incredible. They have Rotom-Wash, Gengar, Gliscor, Scizor, just really good Mons. He has a Gliscor, Blisseycore, physically defensive, specially defensive. He has multiple sweepers on his team, a lot of cleanup. He's got, in my opinion, the best Mega. And I think the only problem is that he's in the same division as New York Metangs, and they have a Conkeldurr, and he has 0 for that. The closest thing he has is Spiritomb, and that thing it can't do anything back. Even though it can eat it up, it just can't do anything back, besides maybe toxicking it or burning it, which would just give it the guts boost. I can't see him being able to counter that besides just predicting really well, and if he loses that prediction, he basically loses that match. And I think that's the only reason why I put him so low, even though he has one of the nicest looking teams.
My number 8 is Green Bay. Green Bay Palkias. Like, scary looking team. Muse, Aptos, Mamazine, Keldeo are horrifying first 4 mega picks. Like, jeez. Hydreigon's phenomenal in this format. Hawlucha's great in this format. Snorlax is pretty good. Quagsire is a solid mon with that Unaware. And then Escavalier and Whimsicott just falls flat on its face for me. Escavalier is great, but it's so slow. It's not particularly bulky, and it's not got the best offensive typing at all. Like, it's basically a very poor, priority-less Scizor for me. This team's also... There's a couple of gimmicks on here, like Hawlucha, it either works or it really doesn't. Whimsicott, it either works or it really doesn't. Mega Aerodactyl, it either works or it gets absolutely pile-driven. So there's a lot of potential on this team for really good stuff, and I'm by no means counting it out. I'm just saying that I think there are, 7 teams that are solidly better than this one in the league. That said, I'll be very interested to see where they end up.
At number 8, I have the Seattle Seadras. I really like the team. As I said, in the middle of the pack, the teams are really close. It's just a lot of personal preference of what we think works well. The one thing I want to note about his team, he has Thunder's Therian form, which completely shuts down almost all forms of Volt Turn. Like, Volt Turn teams have a very hard time working in Seattle. Obviously, Thunderous Therian can take U-turns, and Volt absorbs Volt switches. He's also got a bunch of cool mons. Weavile's pretty cool as a sweeper. Hitmonlee's alright. Mega Gallade is very, very strong in this format. Klefki is as well. Overall, there's a couple good mons. This team itself is a very, very good lead. Overall, I think there's, a good amount of quality here. I just feel that there's other teams with Pokemon that are a little bit of a tier up from him.
Alrighty, so at number 8, I had New England Patrats. He's got some nice synergy in there. He's got Gengar, Gliscor, Blissey, Rotom W, which definitely has some nice energy. He's got some offensive power in Lopunny, Mega Lopunny, and Scizor, but I'm not sure if I really like the Rotom W as a franchise pick. It's kind of not that versatile, and it's actually not as bulky as it's made out to be. It just has a low HP, which is its big problem. Overall, though, I think New England is kind of like the second best in their division, so we'll see what happens. I think they definitely have some pieces to move around, though, and they have the ability to make a push.
My number 8 choice is actually going to be the Phoenix Sunkern. I understand a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me about putting them so low.
You're wrong.
I'm just going to go over my reasoning for it. I'm kind of going to break this down by each individual mon. To begin with, their Mega Medicham is definitely a great mon in this format. It's extremely powerful, good physical move pool, priority in Fake Out and Bullet Punch, but I disagree with him taking Mega Medicham over Mega Gallade. The extra 10 points in speed with Mega Gallade plus its ability to set up with Swords Dance, as well as its knockoff coverage, I think just make it an overall better pick. And then going down the list, going kind of towards the bottom, I'm really not a huge fan of how he has 2 mons that use Eviolite. Because in a format like this, you're going to see, when your opponent sees that you're bringing something like Gligar, Porygon 2, pre-evolutions, you're going to take a mon that normally doesn't carry knockoff, something maybe like Superior, maybe something like Tangrowth, something like that, and you're going to slap on knockoff, because suddenly something that becomes a regular switch-in in standard play then becomes a liability almost. Outside of that, I'm not seeing too much to deal with ice types, outside of course, Manaphy. And I guess ice types aren't super common in this tier, but I think while his team does look very standard OU, very powerful, I think it might run into some trouble against people who A, bring knockoff, and B, who plan around its core of Latios, Ferrothorn, Manaphy. Also, one more thing I'd like to point out, Scolipede, although I do love it as an offensive mon, Baton Pass has really not worked successfully in League format all that often.
Alright, at number 7, I have the Chicago Sacred Fire. Their team is pretty decent. They have good Pokemon like Mega Heracross, which I think with the right moveset, if you counter team your opponent, switching between Bullet Seed and Rock Blast, you can do really well. Heatran obviously is a good Pokemon. Tentacruel is a fast spinner and also has bulk. He just has some weirder picks, like I think Metagross was an odd one. Drapion, I wasn't really thinking of him picking that. That was something that caught me off guard. But he also has powerhouses like Staraptor, and what takes 2 attacks from a Staraptor? Nothing. Also Garchomp, which It got picked really late because somebody made a mistake with the Pokemon that were remaining, the list that had the Pokemon remaining. Somebody made a mistake and took off Garchomp. But he also has speed and superior in Mienshao, and that's really good.
My number 7 pick is the Seattle Seadras. And I should note that pretty much from here on out, it's not a question of teams that are bad, it's a question of which teams are better. So I very much did my list from the top down rather than the bottom up. So really, the Seattle Seadras are a great team. They have speed, a lot of speed. In some of the hitters here, I do see a lot of Scuff potential. Like Scuff, Typhlosion, not much wants those eruptions. There's 2 mons that can eat that, and that's Heatran and Houndoom, neither of which can take an Earthquake or a Focus Blast. So I really enjoy Typhlosion. It was said earlier that Typhlosion's not a great mon in this format, which it isn't, but I mean, so. There's great bulk on this team, and there's a lot of revenge killing capability in Weavile, Thundy-T, Hitmonlee, Azelf, Mega Gallade, Flosion, if I could go on. There's really good bulk in Melodic, Clef, Mence, Hitmonlee, Donphan, Registeel, great lead in Azelf. Gallade is a phenomenal Mega. My only criticism of this team is it is a little bit one track. Pretty much everything here has its devoted role, and while there are things with great move pool, like Thundurus and Mence, I don't really see, and Azelf as well, I don't really see much of anything else running anything unique.
Alright, at number 7, I have Green Bay. I really like the Green Bay team, actually. It's one of the middle-of-the-pack teams that I have. I think I rate Mega Aerodactyl a little higher than most. I really like Mew. Mew is a very solid utility Pokemon. As you know, a Spell Breaker, it can be defensive, hazard controller. It has a lot of very good options you could use it with. Zapdos and Mamoswine and Keldeo are 3 very good mons. Now, they might not be the best Pokemon, but they're still very solid pickups. Hawlucha has proved in the past to be very good in this format after being used. Escavalier is a questionable pick, I would find, but overall I think he's got a lot of good Pokemon. He's got a good amount of tools to make something work, and I think we'll definitely see him fighting for a playoff spot with this team. He's got a good couple Pokemon to work with.
Number 7, I had Detroit Pincers. Not a bad draft, it's just I see some team synergy problems that could possibly be exploited. The Psychic typing, drafting 4 Psychic types in a row, but still, though all 4 of those Psychic types are very versatile, she has a ton of versatility with her team, and because she is between 5 and 8, I thought she had the second best chance of winning her division, at least based off draft alone. I don't exactly know how she plays, but we'll see what happens.
For my number 7 pick, I have the San Antonio Swampers. This is another team I think started their draft really well, and then it kind of faltered toward the end, but the first 2 picks, Mega Manectric and Tornadus Therian, that is an excellent Volturn core. Mega Manectric's ability Intimidate allows mons to take physical hits better, as well as Tornadus T's special bulk with maybe an Assault Vest or something like that is really useful. Both of these are extremely fast, both of these things extremely hit hard, and they cover each other's weaknesses pretty well. Mega Manectric being weak to ground, Tornadus T being immune to regular basic weakness stats and all that. And then Cresselia is thrown in there, which is also a great mon in this format. It's disgustingly bulky. It takes basically any hit from anything ever. And it doesn't hit back too hard, but it does its job of just never dying, which is really good. I think Empoleon is pretty good in the format. Decent bulky water type with the ability to go offensive, maybe throw in an agility set. Stealth Rocks and Defog on the same mon can be helpful. Cobalion, I think it's great. And then after Cobalion, I see a little bit of faltering. I do like Goodra. I think Goodra's a great dragon type. Cloyster, I don't really love as a pick, primarily because this just adds to his current fighting weakness. Not super fighting weakness, because obviously he has Cresselia and Tornadus T, but he starts to develop a little bit of a lack of synergy. I think Cloyster really does not do super well in this format. I know people have run random things like a Scarfed Cloyster, or a Rapid Spin or Hazard Stack, but I'm not too in love with it. And then you throw in Rhyperior. I do kind of like Rhyperior, but Nidoqueen, I think, is a good pick. Another potential rocker, potential toxic spikes. Very powerful on the special side. Can go mixed. Entei, very good pick. Very powerful. Choice Band Sacred Fire has almost no switch in. And Grand Bull I actually like a lot more than people think. Especially because it's another mon that has the option to be bulky, physically defensive, or it can go offensive. And it does have actually a very good move pool. Powerful Fairy Stab and Play Rough. Then you got things like Close Combat, Earthquake. I believe it gets the Elemental Punches. So, but my biggest problem with his team is more or less hazard removal, if that makes sense. Empoleon as a defogger is basically its only hazard removal outside of Cloister, with Rapid Spin if you want to use a Cloister that way. But I think every team should have at least 2 ways to remove hazards safely, and 2 mons that remove them that kind of synergize well with each other. Like Empoleon and Cloister do not go all that well together, both being weak to fighting.
So starting off for me, the top half of this list, I put Detroit, the Detroit Pincers. I think that their team isn't that bad just because there isn't a knockoff user, like a powerful knockoff user in their division, besides, I guess, Azumarill for Atlanta, and Chicago has Mienshao, and those are the only 2 real Pokemon that can abuse knockoff, and I think that's the only threat to her. She just doesn't have anything that can take a knockoff. I don't think Slurpuff can take a knockoff because Slurpuff is really good as a belly drum Pokemon. I tried using it as a couple other sets and it just never worked. And I guess other than that, she has Honchkrow, Mega Charizard X, which are Pokemon that doesn't want to switch in. Lucario doesn't want to switch in. I think the only reason why she could have gotten 4 Psychics in a row is just because, you know, Slowbro, Jirachi, Starmie, and Celebi, she just trades one of them, and a lot of people, you know, she's already put Celebi on the trading block, and a lot of people are going to be looking at trying to get Celebi because that's just such a powerful Pokemon, and she in return can probably get hazard removal, or maybe a better hazard setter because all she has is Diggersby with spikes. And I guess Chansey with rocks.
And Jirachi with rocks. And Celebi with rocks.
Celebi gets rocked? Oh,
and Dragalge with toxic spikes.
okay.
And I made Dave look like an idiot. Next person.
Alright, in light of Dave being made to look like an idiot, my number 6 pick is the Portland Timbers. I'm going to start out by saying that this is a really good team. All around, it's very solid. A lot of unpredictability with Latias, Infernape, and Mr. Unpredictability itself, Zoroark, paired with a great Mega. I mean, Mega Pinsir is amazing. I still stand by the assertion that it's easily one of the best Megas in existence. The only thing that let me down on this team is after the first, 5-6 picks, it kind of tapered a little bit for me. Amoonguss is good, but it definitely has a strong list of issues, namely its Psychic and Bird weaknesses. Slowking is good but not great. Arcanine, again, good but not great, in that it, while it's meant to be a physical tank that can burn things, it does have a lot of issues. Zoroark's great, I love Zoroark. Crobat's really good, but I don't think it's the best mon for its job necessarily, although having a fast defogger is awesome. And Magneton is good but not great. Overall, this team is good stuff like Infinite, Latias, Sylveon, Mega Pinsir. Oh my god, they're amazing, and I really love them, and they synergize really well. I'm just not sure about necessarily the rest of the team having a huge amount of potential. It's good. It's not great in my opinion.
Alright, so number 6, I have New England, who is coached by Blockiest Battles. I think that team is good. He's got Mega Lopunny, which is a little insane. We'll say that. The cool thing that the Mega Lopunny has an advantage over other fighting types is that the random niche ghost types that people like to pick up to wall them, like Doublade, and well, he has Spiritomb, so I guess that's a moot point. Don't get walled by, it doesn't get walled by because it's scrappy. The rest of his team, you know, it's a bunch of linear threats that are all kind of good. Like Run and Wash, you know, they can play a couple different sets, but they're not widely different. Gengar is pretty much your standard special attacker. He can be cute instead of substitutes. But much past that, you know, it's just a bunch of average sets are really good. I really like Breloom though. On a 1-year contract, I'm surprised it didn't go earlier. You know, it's not it's not the best, but like, it's still pretty good to get spores off. You know, there aren't as many popular grass types to use, and once they're being spread around multiple teams, not a lot of teams have spore switch-ins. So I think, you know, it's a good pickup by him. I like the team. I don't know, it just doesn't seem to, like, besides the Mega Wapiti 2, outstanding to me. Like, I don't see anything besides that really jumps out as super threatening.
So for my number 6, I have the New York Matangs. And this is a team that I think could very well have been in the top 3, maybe even number 1. Just, like, I'm going to go down the team really quick and explain how good it works together and how strong it looks. First of all, you got Mega Altaria, one of the best Megas in OU. Then you got Escadrille, great rapid spinner, hits very hard, benefits from the sand in case he decides to run sand on anything. Raikou, one of the best fast electric types. Suicune, one of the bulkiest moms in the game. Conkeldurr, extremely bulky, doesn't mind taking scalds. Gyarados, very scary, can surprise you with a natural gift. Powerful setup sweeper. Then you got Meloetta, very powerful as well. Hyper Voice, ability to hit behind a sub, guaranteed charge beam boosts. Crocodile, great pursuit trapper, knockoff user, stealth rocker, excellent scarfer. Roserade, also extremely versatile in this format. Everything on his team just screams power. And then he drafts a fucking Dunsparce. That's all I gotta say.
Alright, my number 6, Portland. Alright, like I said before, I think Portland actually, if I did a general power ranking, not by blocks from 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12 by division, I think Portland could have been higher. I really do. But because I'm doing one person from each division in those 3 blocks, I thought Dallas had a better matchup against Portland than Portland has against Dallas. Or, it's rather San Diego. San Antonio, what am I talking about? But yeah, Togue has built a pretty good team. Mega Pinsir is awesome. I think Dallas has ways around it, like I said. Dallas Boy 1992, that is. But I do think that Portland has plenty of options that it can use and has good team advantage against many of the other people he goes against in other divisions. Once again, I think his challenge is going to be going against Dallas because he has so many ways to neutralize a lot of the threats on his team. For example, Dallas Boy's Mega Manectric does a lot of work, but once again, Portland still has a contending team. Highlight Mega Pinsir. I have a lot of experience with it. Great Mon, and it can carry teams, and I expect it to carry Toge's team.
Alright, so for me, I have on number 5, the Phoenix Sunkerns. I really like Phoenix's team because it literally looks like a straight-up OU team with Latios, Ferrothorn, Manaphy, Thundurus, Bisharp. Those are all just OU Pokemon. And he might not have the best Mega in the format, which is Mega Medicham, but it's literally like Lopunny, just a little bit slower. It has really fast, or really hard-hitting attacks. It has priority and Fake Out, Bullet Punch, and a lot of other different moves like Ice Punch. If you want, you can run Fire Punch for certain things. And I'm pretty sure it even learns Knockoff. And he also has Bisharp, which can deal with ghosts that gets in Mega Medicham's way. And he also has like walls from lower tiers like Togekiss, Gligar, Porygon. Those are all walls. I'm pretty sure Scolipede actually can't baton pass now because of the new rule that was implemented, but it can still in itself just set up spikes. It can still just sweep by itself. It doesn't need to baton pass. It has Sword Stance, it has Speed Boost, it can sweep all by itself, and Gothitelle just traps anything that's in his way.
I would note that we in the league are actually allowing Scolipede to baton pass. We're allowing 1 baton passer per team, per game, because in this league it's a lot easier to prepare for. You see a Scolipede in someone's 10 and you know there's a chance for baton pass. I talked to the commissioner about that just to make sure that we were all on the same page. I should have warned you guys. I apologize. Anyway, so for my number 5, I have also got the Phoenix Sunkern. My notes just say it's OU in a bag. It's got bulk, longevity, power, priority, and a few really cool gimmicks. I mean, between Thunderous Eye, Gothitelle, and Scolipede, you've got some really interesting gimmicks and speed control. You've got speed and threat control right there. You've got incredible sweepers in Manaphy, in Latios Bisharp, and of course in Mega Medicham. Scolipede has got incredible power, fantastic wall core in Gligar and P2, Togekiss for defog support. I see nothing wrong with this team. And plus Mega Medicham hits like an absolute truck, and there's just not much you can do for it when you only have 11 Mons. Especially when you've got Gothitelle to trap things and take care of them, Thunderous Eye to slow down big threats, Ferrothorn to switch in on hits, and you also have Scolipede to get speed and power, additional unnecessary power to that Mega Medicham. I'm scared of this team, so that puts it at my solid number 5. Good luck to Cheeseboy.
At number 5, I have Detroit Pinsers. Ashley, this is a team that has a lot of Pokemon that I recall using to success in winning Season 1 on the MPL. Pokemon like Mega Charizard X just... I mean, you can prepare for Mega Charizard X as much as you want, but there are just times where it's just going to get its Dragon Dance up and you're just not going to be able to do anything about it. And it's just going to kill you. Chansey is a really, really good Pokemon in this format. It's kind of like a catch-all Pokemon, because there are a lot of Pokemon, especially on the special attacking side, that have limited counters. And, well, I guess Chansey doesn't really counter as well as other Pokemon. But Chansey is a good Pokemon, as it deals with most of the special attackers. So a lot of special attackers, you know, that aren't necessarily countered by a lot, Chansey can make sure that weakness is dealt with. There's a problem on the team though, and is that this team does not like to get knocked off in any way, shape, or form. She drafted 4 Psychic types in a row. Unfortunately for her, she has Slurpuff she can use to kind of mitigate some of that issue. But overall, looking at the team, I think there are teams that I maybe rank below it that are a little bit better, but I feel like if Ashley makes a trade, her team is in such a good position post a trade, moving a Psychic type, that I feel like the team, you know, it just, even without a trade, I think it's one of the better teams in the league. And even if they make a trade, I think, you know, this team is easily a team that can compete for a top spot in the league.
Okay, my number 5 team is the New England Pat Rats, coached by Bacchius, Nathan. I think this team has the potential to be one of the best in the league. Mega Lopunny is one of the best light megas in the format, extremely fast, extremely powerful, and something I want to mention, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but when you draft something that has incredible speed like Mega Lopunny, you don't always have to run max speed. You know, depending on your team, or your opponent's team, you can run Adamant, you can run a certain amount of speed, and then you can run the rest in bulk, and that is just one of the benefits of something like Mega Lopunny. After that, you got Rotom Wash, Gengar, Gliscor, which is an excellent core. Gliscor doesn't mind taking a knockoff too much after it gets its Toxic Orb activated, because it doesn't really need the Toxic Orb after that. Scizor is an excellent Mon. Choice Band can be bulky defog, can be Swords Dance, excellent setup sweeper. Blissey, similar to what Fog said about Chansey, sponges special hits that other special walls cannot take. Volcarona is extremely scary in this format. The ability to set up a Quiver Dance is extraordinarily terrifying. Nidoking, another excellent Mon in the format. Breloom, very good to get Spore off, especially if you can get a Spore off with Breloom and then switch out into Volcarona on the sleep, you have the potential to start setting up and winning.
So, my number 5 was the Phoenix Sunkerns Cheese Boy. He's the top of that second bracket. Because I thought he was the second. Looking at his team, it looked like, on paper, he was the second best team structurally wise in his division. I do think that the Toronto Staraptors have a bit of an edge currently, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cheese can bring an upset to that. Anyways, looking at this man's team structure, it's like his last year team where he went 6-8, except it's just much better. He has a core with the core of last season. His big work, the Pokemon did a lot of work, Mega Medicham, and he's pairing it with Latios and Ferrothorn, Manaphy, and Thunderous. Those are huge threats right there. Bisharp's nothing to scoff at. Gothitelle can make some moves with. Togekiss isn't bad. Gligar is actually surprisingly not that bad. Porygon 2 is not that bad situationally, and Scolipede, who knows what he can do. I like Cheese's team a lot. I do think he has a chance. Currently, I think that Jolts is a little bit ahead, but Cheese, I think, as long as he doesn't get unlucky, doesn't get tons of hacks like last season, and I feel for him for that. I know how it feels. I think he'll do very well this season. Overall, great draft.
For number 4, I have the New York Metangs. Now, I think they have a beautiful team with Excadrill, which is a great Pokemon. It could be like defensive with Rapid Spin and Stealth Rocks. It could be Scarf. It could be Life Orb, Swords Dance. He also has Tangrowth, Raikou, Suicune, and Conkeldurr, which is just a great defensive core. Raikou is incredibly fast. It outspeeds a lot of this metagame. It's hard hitting too. It can run like Assault Vest, Scarf, Specs, who knows, Tangrowth. Obviously it's just fat and doesn't die. Suicune, Crocoon is incredible. Conkeldurr has great coverage. There's not a lot of stuff in this format that can just switch into it like nothing. Gyarados, obviously, Moxie, Dragon Dance is good. If he's real, he'll be special though, but... And then there's Meloetta, which is a kind of a weak pick. Roserade is okay too. Crocodile has a lot of different sets. It could be like bulky Stealth Rock, it could be Choice Scarf, it could be Choice Banded, who knows. And then obviously Mega Altaria is, there's so many sets you can run with that thing, it's ridiculous. He can.
And then there's a fucking Dunsparce.
And then there's the greatest pick. The reason I even put him so high is just because of this Dunsparce. He's gonna sweep with it, dude. He's gonna sweep with it.
For my number 4, I have got Detroit. The Detroit Pincers, because... whew, best Mega Possible. Best Mega in the format, absolutely. Mega Charizard X is an absolute monster. There's no way around that. It's got too many Psychic types, I will say that. The Slowbro, Rachi, Starmie, Celebi, 4 in a row was a little bit of a dubious pick, but dear god, this is just a strong mixed bag team with the monster that is Chansey, with the physical wall of Slowbro to pair that out. Those knockoff weaknesses are somewhat mitigated by Lucario, who can switch in on most knockoffs, take a justified boost, and just start punching with extreme speed, bullet punch, whatever. Slurpuff's really good, Honchkro's great in this format, Dragalge is excellent. And I mean, Celebi, Rachi, Starmie are all really good in this format, so given the right team, given the right play around, and actually playing carefully to avoid the knockoffs, this could be a really scary team. I like it a lot. It's one of my favorites.
Okay, at number 4, I have the Toronto Staraptors. It's a very, very solid defensive team, a team, that I have no problems playing with. Mega Venusaur, Clefable, Skarmory, all very good. Rotom Heat, Tornadus, Rhinoclus, all very good on defensive threats as well. The reason I had this team at 4 and am not as high as others might have it, is mainly because I'm not a super big fan of his offensive threats. Greninja without Protean, I evidently, I haven't ever seen it used because hell, why would you ever use it without Protean? And I'm not a big fan of Dragonite. Alakazam's pretty good. Dragonite, as I said, is okay. Terrakion is really nice, but I don't know. I think the defensive side of his team is spot on, but I'm not convinced at this point that the offensive side of his team is going to be able to get him there. I mean, maybe I could be wrong, and I just being out of my ass or whatever, but at this point in time, his offensive side needs to convince me a little bit more.
For my number 4 pick, I actually have the Green Bay Palkias, which I think is going to surprise a couple people because I think everyone else had them ranked down much lower. But I'm actually a huge fan of Michael's team. I think Mega Aerodactyl is sneakily one of the best Megas in the format. Also, if you look at everyone else's roster, Mega Aerodactyl is the fastest thing that has been picked. So, as I said earlier with Mega Lopunny, this thing can run a lot of bulk, can run plus attack natures, and the only thing that will ever outspeed it is something that is going to be running a Choice Scarf. After that, we have Mew, which is the definition of versatility. It's also one of the best picks this season. After that, you got Zapdos, very good. Bulkymon can go offensive as well. Mammoth's line is very scary, especially in this format. Counters like, I guess, Bronzong can be hit with knockoff. Keldeo, not as good in this format as most people would think, but it's still scary, and with the right matchup, it's going to hit things hard. Hydreigon is disgusting. Howlucha and Snorlax, Quagsire, Scavalier, Whimsicott are the rest of his picks. The only reason I don't have him higher is because kind of the last half of his draft are full of mons that end up either doing a hell of a lot of work in a match or nothing. Howlucha can either sweep teams or get walled pretty easily. Same with, well, Snorlax doesn't really sweep, but Snorlax either goes down quickly or it never dies. Quagsire kind of the same way. Scavalier is more of a niche Pokemon, I think, especially when you need to pursuit trap things or you need just in Scavalier. And Whimsicott, same thing, can either be the most annoying thing on the planet or it dies instantly. One reason I'm okay with this, though, is because when you have that many things that will either do really, really good or really, really bad, at least one of those is going to do really, really good. So I'm confident in Michael's picks. One more thing I kind of like about his team is that he has 3 Pursuit Trappers in Mega Aerodactyl, Snorlax, and Escavalier, which I think can really come in handy.
Alright, so in my number 4 spot, I have the New York Metags. This is the first in my number 1 category, my block from 1 through 4. I personally think this is what it means. I personally think that Razor, or the New York Metags, have the best matchup against everyone else in their division, in his division. First of all, Mega Altaria is great. Santa Christ, do I even need to say any more? He's got Raikou and Suicune, Mega Altaria, as I said, Meloetta, all of which I'm actually a big fan of in the format. Conkeldurr is there. Crocodile can be a big threat because it can be defensive with Intimidate. It could be Choice Scarf, Moxie, which always has to be planned for. Heck, I could even, who knows, Anger Point could even be a thing for all I know. That would be amazing. I want to see that happen. Overall, though, I see good synergy here. The only thing I'm kind of is Dunsparce, but I guess that was kind of a YOLO pick, so I guess I'll give it to him. Overall, though, I like his draft, and I think he has the best matchup against everyone else in his division, and that is why he is in the 1 bracket, and he's at number 4.
So for me, my number 3 pick was the Portland Timbers. They have Infernape, which is my favorite Pokemon, obviously. It's incredible in this format. Mega Pinsir, which is probably the best sweeper, I think, personally, besides Mega Charizard X. Obviously, Latias has the Defog, and it's the best Defogger in the game. Sylveon with Moonblast, definitely, 100%. He also has a Fat Core and Hippowdon, Amoonguss, Slowking, and Arcanine. That's just fat. That's just really fat. With a Regenerator too. That doesn't die. Zoroark, because he's a troll. Crobat is incredibly fast, and Magneton traps, and that's why I love his team.
For my number 3, I have got the Atlanta Braviaries because, dear God, the offensive starter on this team. Victini, Kyurem B, Landorus T, Azumarill. Dear God. Like, holy God, it's just so incredibly powerful. The offensive core is amazing, and the only reason this team isn't my number 1 is because the late picks and the mega pick are just, they're not bad, they're just disappointing. Umbreon, Albemarle, Doublade, and Aggron, and even Braviary and Mega Blastoise, to a point, are the defensive core and the defensive support that you need for something that is incredibly balls-to-the-wall HO as Teeny, Kyurem, Lando, Zuzu. And I think that Heliolisk, Doublade, and Braviary are all potent sweepers in their own right if you do it right. I mean, I run all of those in lower tiers, and they're incredibly potent, and I know that they have their place in the OU or sub-OU metagame like we play here, so I'll be interested to see where they end up, because I think this is a team that will either decimate and just take no prisoners, or end up dead bottom of the pile because someone brought something with a lot of priority and just sort of killed it. They just died. It was tragic. There were flowers.
Rest in pepperonis.
Okay, for number 3, I have Portland. The reason I have Portland number 3 is because Mega Pinsir has proven to be one of the better Megas that you can pick up through GBA stats. If you guys watch that league, it's actually never been drafted here, which is odd. I would have expected someone to have picked it up at some point. Not to mention Infernape. I mean, it's like mixed fire types in a draft league format where Pokemon that you don't have as many switch-ins. Mixed fire types, have proven to thrive in that format. So having Infernape in combination with Mega Pinsir is just ridiculous. Like, that's just amazing, hard-hitting, wall-breaking offensive core. Not to mention Latias, Sylveon, two very, very solid special attackers to round that out. Sylveon can also play a more defensive role, as well as Latias. Hippowdon and Amoonguss, good as well. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of the other picks. Magneton as a trapper I don't think is as extremely relevant. I'm not a big fan of conditional trappers like Magneton. I much prefer trappers like Dugtrio, or the trapper Dugtrio. I'm not a big fan of steel trappers, but Crobat's okay. Zoroark is nice. Arcanine is a pretty niche Pokemon that'll show up in certain matchups and do its job. So I think it's a very solid team that'll be carried by the fact that Mega Pinsir and Infernape are just insane.
My number 3 pick is going to be the Toronto Staraptors. The first 3 Mons on his team, his first 3 picks, I had to go to my nearest trash can and just puke into it, because Mega Venusaur, Clefable, Skarmory is going to be so difficult to break through. I think the only thing I can think of off the top of my mind that can kind of handle that would be 3 attacks Thunderous, Thunderbolt for the Skarmory, Sludge Bomb for the Clefable, Psychic for the Mega Venusaur, and even then, Skarmory lives on 30, Clefable eats up a Sludge Bomb, Sludge Wave, whatever, and Mega Venusaur can take a Psychic no problem. So that in its own right is going to be extremely difficult. After that, you get Greninja, which granted it is Torrent Greninja, so it's not going to be as potent as Protein Greninja. It's still going to be very strong. It is extremely fast. It still gets all the same moves. It's just not getting stabbed on all of them. Like, a non-stab Gunk Shot will still do a lot to things like Azumarill and Sylveon. After that, you got Dragonite, which is one of those mons I think is successful more times than it's not, but when it's not successful, or when it's walled by your opponent, it ends up kind of being useless. Terrakion is an excellent mon. It just kind of does well in this format just because it's so incredibly strong and relatively versatile, can run rocks. Special attack is good enough to run random hidden powers for things that are 4 times weak to it. Rotom 8, pretty versatile. Rotom H, not Rotom 8. Rotom H is pretty versatile, bulky, can be offensive. Alakazam is one of the best revenge killers in the game. My 2 biggest problems with his team, I guess, would be Tornadus I and Porygon Z. Not that I think that they're bad mons at all. It's just when your team has an Alakazam, a Greninja, a Dragon Dance with the ability to set up, I don't really think you need Tailwind, which I'm sure he's going to find other uses for Tornadus I, but I personally have not had success with it, and maybe that's just my fault. And then Porygon Z, I think it can be very devastating to certain teams. Like Nasty Plot can be threatening, Double Dance, the Scarf set and the Specs set are really good, but once you kind of determine what type of Porygon Z it is, I feel like it becomes so much easier to deal with. And aside from that, I actually really love the Reuniclus. I don't know how I feel about 2 Psychic types with Magikarp on the same team, but I understand Reuniclus can be more bulky, Alakazam's more of a revenge killer. And Reuniclus is also a pretty good stop to a lot of physically attacking mons, and it's one of the best Combine users in the game, I think.
And okay, number 3 on my list was the San Antonio Swamperts, coached by Dallas Boy. I love his team composition. I'm going to disagree with all you guys who said it was garbage. I disagree completely. Empoleon, Granbull, Cresselia, Goodra, Rhyperior, a fantastic core in my opinion, and he has a lot to choose from defensively and offensively. He has Mega Man Electric and Tornadus T for U-turners, and the ability to even set up with things like Cloyster or Rhyperior. While not conventional, I do think that the only weakness I see in there is kind of a weakness to ground types, but he has Cresselia and Tornadus T to mitigate that. And plus, I think he can find other ways around it with air balloons, shucca berries. He's got a lot at his disposal. Overall, he in my opinion has the best matchup against everyone in his division, and I would, based on team composition right now, based on my initial thoughts, I would expect him to win his division.
So my second overall pick was the Toronto Staraptors. I think they're the second best team because they have Clefable, Skarmory, Mega Venusaur. That's just fat and annoying. You're probably gonna need to maybe use like a Volt Turn or something to get through that, because that is just annoying. Or you can just triple switch a billion times. Greninja, Dragonite are two really good offensive mons. You have Terrakion, Alakazam, which are both fast, hard-hitting. Rotom Mate, that's a good one. Tornadus Eyes, it's not the big bird, right?
No.
Oh, it's still good though for, it's a good prankster Pokemon. It has Tailwind that can make his fat Pokemon fast and fat, which would be horrible. He also has, all his Pokemon can run multiple sets, which is just great, besides maybe like Alakazam. Porygon Z could be defensive, choice specs, Reuniclus is fat with Calm Mind, and it hits like a horse, and that's wonderful. And I think his team was just disgustingly drafted, and it's amazing.
Alright, my number 2 team is the New England Patrats. It's really weird to say New England is number 2 and Patrat is number 2. There's so much weirdness going on in my head right now. And the reason that I say that is because bulky offense is my love. I see Rotom Wash, I see Gliscor, I see Scizor, I see Blissey, I see Volcarona, I see Breloom, I see Megalophony, I see Spiritomb. The bulk never ends, and it's not necessarily things that are outright bulky, it's things that just don't go away because they have so many annoying tricks. And then you've got things like Gengar, which hits like a horse, to steal Dave's turn of phrase. You've got Gardevoir, which is just fun. And you've got the fact that every single thing here has options, every single thing here can set up. I want to see a Sweeper Blissey set. I want to see Calm Mind, Serene Grace Blissey. If it doesn't show up once, I'm going to be disappointed. But primarily the fact that not only does he have Megalophony, he also has 2 enormous ghost types. The only thing that would be better than him having Spiritomb would be if he were to have Sableye to stop Prankster Ghost Willows. Because even though he has Scrappy, ghost types can still put Megalop through its paces, depending on what's going on. So it's really, really nice to see him have 2 of those. He also has Gliscor and Sizzle, which are 2 of the checks to Megalop, assuming it's not carrying Fire/Ice Punch. So, and he also got Rotom Wash. He's got all of the checks to Megalophony, basically. So he's just gonna, punch holes with Gengar, Rotom, Gliss, bring in Lop, and win. I'm excited to see this team in action.
At number 2, I have the Phoenix Sunkern. Mainly because I am a big fan of the first 4 picks he made. Mega Medicham obviously being a straight savage. There are few things that enjoy taking a high jump kick. The Mega Medicham just will most likely destroy anything in front of it. If it gets an advantageous switch and it forces a switch out, unless you get unlucky and get hacks, you're pretty much guaranteed about at least 40% on something. Latios is really good. Has a good offensive pressuring Pokemon. Defogging as well was really nice. Ferrothorn, very, very, very solid defensive Pokemon. Manaphy, a very, very solid Pokemon for sweeping capabilities as a endgame finisher. Tailglow is really good. That's all I gotta say about that. Thunders is, as well just solid. He just got a bunch of solid OU Pokemon. Gothitelle is really good at picking off the threats that will wall what he has. He can look in team matchup, make a Gothitelle that is specifically designed to deal with one Pokemon, and then he can take the game from there. Other Pokemon are good. Togekiss is nice. Porygon 2 is pretty good. Skull Speed is, as we are not following the rule that Spawn just implemented for Baton Pass, we are allowing him to use Scolipede as it would be used prior. It's a pretty solid pickup. I mean, I still think Bisharp is pretty bad in draft format, but besides that, his entire team's really, really good. and that 5 Pokemon at the start, I mean, like, this team is just mind-bogglingly good.
My number 2 team is going to be the Portland Timbers, coached by Togavor. Mega Pinsir and Infernape as his first 2 picks make for an extraordinarily good offensive core. They complement each other well, Infernape resisting things like ice moves that Pinsir is weak to, as well as Pinsir is just an absolute powerhouse, especially in this format. There's almost nothing that wants to switch into a return. It gets decent coverage moves like X Scissor, Earthquake, Close Combat. Priority Quick Attack is going to rip apart the league. After that, Infernape, one of the best mixed attackers. It's exceptionally good in the format with its versatility. And then to complement his offense, he drafts Latias and Sylveon, which make for a very nice Dragon Fairy core. Latias can be offensive as well and defensive, same with Sylveon. After that, you got Hippowdon, good Stealth Rocker, stops electric types that could be annoying. After that, he has the Amoonguss Slowking core, Regenerator core. Slowking can really take on those Ice-type hits that Latias or Mega Pinsir or Hippowdon would not want to take. Although Slowking and Latias are both weak to knockoff, he does have the Sylveon to switch into those. Arcanine is also very good. Its offensive move pool is also very nice with Flare Blitz, Close Combat, and even Wild Charge for things like a random Gyarados or bulky water types. Zoroark, I have no idea how it's gonna work. I haven't really seen it used in many leagues, but it could be tricky. Depends on how Toad plays with it. The only 2 things I'm really not a huge fan of are Crobat and Magneton, and I'm not even like that against Crobat because fast mons are very good in this format, but I feel like Crobat is not really as versatile as the rest of the team. I understand he probably wanted another defogger outside of Latias, but I feel like maybe some sort of Rapid Spinner, maybe even like a Hitmontop would have benefited his team a little bit better. And then Magneton, I understand he was going for a little bit more speed, but I think Magnezone is still going to be better. It's much more powerful, it's much bulkier.
Alrighty, guys. Number 2 is the Toronto... okay, I can't remember.
Raptor.
Thank you. Toronto Staraptor. Probably the most skilled battler out there. He's got a very solid team overall. I think he can utilize it very well. I like Torrent Greninja with its versatility. I like Dragonite a lot because it can go physical or special. It has a lot of good moves that it can use. It can even be defensive. It can set up. I like Tornadus because similarly to Tornadus T, although it's a little bit slower, it still gets Prankster, can set up subs, he can run a Rain Dance team with Dragonite and Hurricane. I think that'd be cool with Mega Venusaur as well. He's got a lot of options here. Once again, I hold him in very high regard for being one of probably the best players in this league. So that's largely why I put him at number 2.
Alright, so here it is. It is time for my number 1. My number 1 pick for this league is an incredibly professional pick. I chose my channel mate. I chose Jolt. I chose the Jolt. I think that the Toronto Staraptors are an absolutely devastating team. There's just nothing that I think is better than this. I'm looking at his team, if I could close out of Showdown because I can't stop one-stop Pokemons. I just see a winning combination. I see Skarmory, Clefable, Rotom Heat, Reuniclus, and Mega Venusaur, which just, the bulk don't stop. I see Dragonite, which is easily one of the best sweepers there is out there since Gen 1 moving forward. Terrakion, same thing, amazing sweeper. Alakazam is arguably the best revenge killer in the game. Even without Torrent, Greninja's move pool just makes it even with Torrent, without Protean, Greninja's move pool makes it a huge threat. Paragon Z and Reuniclus are kind of off the wall, and I like it. Tornadus I can throw up, Tailwinds. It's just a scary team. It's got offensive diversity, it's got incredible speed, it's got a lot of priority. The defensive core is terrifying, and I know that Jolt is just in his element when he has a Mega Venusaur on his team. As he showed last year, like, it's basically an unstoppable monster. So I really am excited to see this team play.
For number 1, I have Atlanta, and I mean, you look at Victini, I think Victini is probably the best Pokemon in a draft environment, just by the nature of how mixed fire types are just extremely good. Kieran Black is one of the better ones too. I'm pretty sure Kieran Black has been in quite a few leagues, so to see him as a first round pick in the 3-year contracts is very, very solid for him to pick up. Landorus Therian, I mean, just amazing Pokemon in general. Azumarill, year 1 MVP. I mean, this thing is just a super good offensive threat. Not to mention that he has Umbreon, Alomomola, 2 very good defensive Pokemon. Doublade is a very, very solid switch into the non-Mega Lopunny fighting Pokemon. Besides that, though, Helios, Aggron, Braviary, they all do a bunch of neat things, but nothing really too much to worry about there. Mega Blastoise, you know, it's a spinner, it gets rid of hazards, it's a decent defensive Pokemon. I would have liked to see him pick up something different, considering he has Alomomola, but I guess, you know, hazard removal is important enough on his team with Victini and Kieran Black both weak to Stealth Rocks. But overall, I mean, I look at this team and the offensive pressure that this team can apply is just going to be way too hard for a lot of other teams to handle. And I feel going into the season, if I had to pick any team to win, I would give it to this team mainly because Pokemon like Victini and Landorus give a very good U-turn, both have U-turn, which allows you to cycle through your offensive threats rather easily. I mean, Helios can Volt Switch as well if you want. Just to cycle into his different offensive threats and always have whatever he wants out onto the battlefield to apply offensive pressure.
Alright everyone, for my number 1 pick, I have the Atlanta Braviaries. To start off, I think Mega Blastoise is extremely underrated. People forget that Mega Blastoise has extremely good move coverage with Scald, Aura Sphere, Ice Beam, Dark Pulse, Dragon Pulse, and all those pulse moves can basically be considered stab due to Mega Launcher. Aside from that, it's one of the best rapid spinners in the game. Things like Gengar, Spiritomb, Mismagius, other ghost types, I don't think Mismagius is drafted, but any other ghost type that wants to switch in does not beat Mega Blastoise. If Spiritomb comes in, unless it's specially defensive, it gets to it KO'd by Scald, and if it is specially defensive, you're risking the burn. And not only that, but it's extremely bulky, it's pretty hard to kill, and it's also not slow. Like, people forget that Mega Blastoise is actually pretty fast. It actually speed ties with things like Mamoswine, base 80s, you know? And then after that, he just has great power. Victini, Kieran Black are probably 2 of the best mons in this format, offensively at least. Victini and Kieran B. Kieran B, for one, its ability in combination with its ridiculous attack stat and its move pool, which is decent enough for this format, is just going to rip things apart. Ice Beam is going to hit super effective on things like Mega Venusaur because of Terravolt. Earth Power can hit Rotom. It's going to be so hard to switch into. And Victini is just an insane wall breaker. Nothing wants to switch in on a V-Create. Plus it has the option to go special. It has things to hit ground water types like with Energy Ball, Grass Knot. It's such a good mon in this format. And then you got Landorus T, which pairs up so well with Kieran Black. Can be defensive, Stealth Rocks, can be offensive with the Choice Scarf. It could be set up, which is actually my favorite set because it sets up on a lot of things. Like, for example, if Conkeldurr doesn't have Ice Punch, it sets up a sub, Swords Dance, maybe a Rock Polish. It's good to go. Sets up on things like Crocodile. It can set up on things like Drapion. It is just such a powerful mon. After that, you have Azumarill, and Azumarill is just one of the best fairies, offensive fairies in the game. After that, I think his draft does start to taper off a little bit, but I think all of his lower picks can benefit his upper picks. I don't love Alomomola and Umbreon being on the same team, especially Alomomola sharing a type with Mega Blastoise, but with Wish support, Mega Blastoise is going to be insanely hard to kill. Same with Victini, same with Kieran Black. Doublade is a very good spin blocker. It's very physically bulky. It can take Brave Birds. It can take basically any one physical hit. And next his pick of Heliolisk, I think, is extremely underrated. I think Heliolisk is one of the best fast electric types in this format. It has one of the best move pools: Hyper Voice, Dark Pulse, Focus Blast, Grass Knot, Surf, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, obviously. And like I said earlier, the ability to hit behind a sub is so valuable because so many random things are going to run substitute. After that, Aggron, I think he can make work. Other people have made it work in the past. Definitely good attack stat, good physical bulk, another potential rocker. And then after that, you got Braviary, which, another thing, I think he can get to work. The thing about Braviary is it's not the best at anything. Like, it's not the best Choice Scarf user, not the best Choice Band user. In that sense, it's overshadowed by Staraptor, but it is another potential defogger, which would be helpful for his team, and the Spadef bulk upset is sometimes hard to counter as well, so we'll see what he does with it, and I'm really looking forward to see Trev play, and I really think he's going to take the title this year.
Alright. And my number one was Trev the King. He's Trev the King for a reason, the Atlanta Braviaries. He was second place last season. He basically only lost because he didn't bring EQ on Zardex. There's a laugh track right there. He is a very scary team this year, even scarier than last season, including Kieran Black, Lando T, Azumarill. He's a very skilled player. The reason why, among those top four, I could put him above Toronto was because he's kind of Toronto's Achilles heel. I don't recall, I could be totally wrong here, but I don't recall Toronto beating Trev last season. Is that true?
I think he did once. I think they were 1-1 come the end of the season.
No, I know in the playoffs that he ended up winning in the playoffs anyways. Okay, I'll make that my point. Trev won in the playoffs last season when it counted most. So there's that tiny edge there. And overall, I just think his team is a little bit better. Let's take a look at what he has before. Alright. Only thing maybe was the Mega Blastoise, but to be perfectly honest, Mega Blastoise isn't even that bad. I think it's not bad for a late round Mega Pick. It does have the ability to Rapid Spin, it does hit very hard, it has some bulk. If you really wanted, you could maybe even throw a mixed Blastoise together somehow. I'm sure he could find some fun ways to use it. I think he's got a lot to work with there. He's got the Alomomola and Umbreon, which sounds like it'll be a nightmare to take down. I actually really like Heliolisk. He can run a Scarf, a Specs, a Life Orb, Expert Belt, a Substitute, who knows what he can run. It also has a U-turn, so it can't phase ground types. I like that. Aggron, we've seen add Ron. That can be a problem for things. And even Braviary, I mean, for a late round pick for bird spam, not bad. I'm liking it. It's also an Intimidate baiter. I think that there's a lot of good value in his team, especially late. And overall, Trev's draft is great, and because of his skill, and because of his standing against the other players in that top 1 through 4 bracket, I put him at 1.
Alright, and for me, the team that I predict to win the championship this season is the Montreal Dunsparces. I think the Atlanta Braviaries...
Boo!
You boo.
Get out.
Okay. I think the Atlanta Braviaries are actually going to win this year. They have probably the best draft. At first, I thought it was kind of weird that he took Mega Blastoise, and then I thought about it, and Mega Blastoise's move pool is so good. It has so many different, like, pulse/aura attacks that it could use that could really help it. It has Victini, and there's no such thing as a switch-in to Victini. Kyurem Black, there's no such thing as a switch into Kyurem Black. Landorus T, it could be Scarf, it could also wall every single thing in existence. After Azumarill gets a belly drum, you click X. Umbreon and Alomomola, he had that core last year and it was too much for him. It was really good. It was the Wish passing, the Protect, the Toxic, the phasing. It was really good core for him. He also has Doublade, the monster. Heliolisk is a good Scarf Pokemon. Aggron and Braviary, I guess he wanted his mascot and the Aggron, Ron.
Alright guys, so this has been the official National Pokeball League Analyst Team Power Rankings. If you stuck around for the entire hour of this video, you are lucky enough to see that we've got an advertisement right here for your very own Slick Dick Nick t-shirt. I know what I'm talking about. Slick Richard Nixon. It's a product put out by a couple of our very dear friends, as sponsored by yours truly. I couldn't resist putting the plug in there. But anyway, check out this channel for all videos to do with the MPL. We'll be bringing you videos every week. We'll be bringing you videos probably multiple times a week. Videos to do with battles, power rankings, updates, listings, explanations, analysis. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Do you guys have anything else before I run out of breath?
Yes, something else I want to mention, the power rankings are not always going to contain all of us. It's usually just going to be me and Vic, because it's a pretty big crowd with all 4 or 5 of us.
You don't say.
And as always, keep it shady.
Foggy.
And as always, guys, we will see you in the next video.
I love
Bye-bye!
Bye.